Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Saturday. Today it is the 22nd of July, 2023. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thank you guys for tuning in this weekend. Every once in a while, weekends become available for me to do shows, and it's great when I'm backed up, backlogged with a lot of mini PC reviews that are waiting in the wings. And so, to help get me caught up, well, sometimes I'll broadcast on weekends. And here we are. Today, it's the AceMagician TK11 that we'll be reviewing. This machine is not like other AceMagicians that are typically budget machines. This still fits within a budget, but it's a higher performing unit than typically what we've seen from AceMagician. So we're going to look into that with some detail during today's live broadcast. Shout out and a thank you to those who have contributed prior to the show starting. Sarge Tech with a $2 super chat earlier said, "Here's for the Gatorade Fund." Right on. Paul O'Brien contributes €2. He says, "Might as well make it 2 Gatorades." And Paul O'Brien contributes €2 again and says, "Just bought Malwarebytes Premium via your link." Oh, thank you guys. Yes, the Malwarebytes discount and a Coronis discount are added into the video notes below this video, along with other links to other discounts to other things. And not trying to sell you anything, but if it's something you're interested in buying, I am looking to save you a bit of money. And at the same time, you're helping to support the channel. So just know those products are there. And if there's a particular product you think that I should be offering, that you think other viewers would find appealing or interesting or desire, covet, let me know, and I'll see if I can work something out with the company to get that discount to you. All right, so hello, everybody. I see John Paul Bacon and Luke Greenia joining us, Ron Barnish and Bradley Morris, Gary Tatum and Andy Kane and Douglas Burchell, Patrick Russo. Everybody's saying hello in there. There's Thomas MacT and Martin Wolferts, Chris Smith, all saying hello. Welcome in, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. As I mentioned, we have a higher performing AceMagician computer, not just entry level like what we've seen a lot from AceMagician. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But what if we could get a higher performing computer with that AceMagician pricing? Well, let me share the link, or rather, let me share the Amazon page with you. We're going to look over the specifications of how they're promoting this computer over at Amazon. There it is. All right, so right now you'll see this computer is $499.99, and there's a 10% off promo code right here. So that'll take off about $50, making this about $450 machine. So what is it for $450? Well, it's an i7 11th gen 4-core processor with 8 threads that can go up to 5 gigahertz. It's incredibly fast. 16 gigs of DDR4 is included, along with a 512 gig M.2 storage drive. NVMe, it says. It supports up to 8K output to the video. It has Wi-Fi 6 with Bluetooth 5.2. It includes USB Type-C and Windows 11 Pro with a fingerprint logon option, which is pretty unique. You'll see the fingerprint reader is right on top of the power button right there. And if we look at the pictures here, we can see you've got an audio port, a couple of USB 3s there in the front, and a Type-C USB in the front. And a little bit about the CPU. A little bit about the built-in graphics that come with the CPU. It's got a speaker built into it, which is pretty interesting. You don't see that too often. And the Thunderbolt 4 connection, which is what's supporting that 8K video output. And Thunderbolt 4 is that USB Type-C connection. They're showing transmission time of a 10 gig movie file over USB 3 takes 40 seconds, or 10 seconds over Thunderbolt 2, 5 seconds over Thunderbolt 4. And it's got 161 ratings, so this model has been out for a while, unless those ratings are for other product. Let's take a look. just real quick before we get started here to see what people are saying about it. This is a recent review right here. Someone's mentioning the customer service. For sure, they have very good customers. AceMagician is very good at getting back to you. They are on an opposite time zone, but you don't get ignored, which I appreciate very much. So, okay, overall, people are digging it. And it looks like this was available in other countries before it was available here in the US, based on the number of reviews I'm seeing prior to the last couple of months. All these older reviews appear to be from Europe. So, in any event, we'll take a look at it and see how this compares to other AceMagician models. This is a bit unusual to see AceMagician entering into the higher performance desktop range, but a welcome one for sure. Let me go back over to camera 1 here. There I am. And we can open up the box, see what we get inside. Are we ready to do that? Camera girl could use some close-up camera work. Yeah, we're going to get right to it today. Not a whole lot has changed since yesterday when I did a longer monologue. If a couple days go by between videos, I usually spend some time just catching everybody up with what's been going on. So we'll wait for Camera Girl to get her butt in gear.
Standing upright is all it takes.
And let's see, close-up camera is this one right here. All right, come on over.
Hello.
Hi. All right, this right here. Here's the box it ships in. Pretty plain. Like there might be a small cake in here. The bottom has a sticker that identifies what's in the box, depending on which check boxes are selected. They obviously have power plugs for US, UK, Europe, and Japan. Different SSD. They keep calling SSDs ROM. 16 gigs of RAM. This is the TK11. You'll also see there's a TK10, CK11, and a CK10 all shipped and sold in the same box. So I would keep prices lower by being able to not have to design a different box for every single model of PC. Pretty smart thing to do. Now this should already be set up. I think I've already set it up.
Oh, there's no cupcakes.
This could be a cupcake. That guy's channel where everything looks real, but it's all really cake.
Yeah.
Is it cake? Bite? All right, so there's our front ports as we saw in the photo on Amazon. And we have this interesting little vent up here. But let's see, we have 2 USBs type A, 1 USB type C. We've got audio. That's going to be your microphone or a headphones or a headset, which is, of course, headphones with a microphone. Nothing on the sides. Come around back. What do we have here? 2 more USB 3s. We've got an HDMI and a display port out. This appears to be our Thunderbolt 4. Is that what that is? And then a Kensington lock down here. Is that Kensington lock?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our Ethernet and our barrel power connector. All right. To open this up, oh, I see. There's a speaker down here, right there. And to open this up, we do not have to remove any rubber feet. How about that? So before we get into what else is in the box, let's open it up. And itching to see what's in there. Interesting that the screws are not symmetrical. Maybe because the speaker gets in the way. Not that it matters, just something my OCD notices. And then somehow this, oh, there it is. Okay, so that is a speaker right there. Look at that. And in the underside, this is what we're seeing from the other side. We have a 2.5-inch drive cage here for adding a 2.5-inch SATA solid state or mechanical drive if you wanted to do that. And that's what this cable is that's taped down right here. There's our Wi-Fi card, which you can easily swap that out when, let's say you wanted to upgrade this to Wi-Fi 7 in the future or Wi-Fi 8, maybe even Wi-Fi 10. This is our 512 gig solid state drive, which has it's an interesting little protector it's got around here. And then we got 2 sticks of 8 gig of DDR4 RAM here. And of course, you can upgrade this for each stick to be 32 for a total of 64 gigs of RAM that it's upgradable to. Now, I suppose if you wanted to change this out, you'd have to remove these 4 screws, and then this top cover will come off. But do bear in mind that speaker is going to be connected, and you don't want to get this SATA connector trapped or hung up on there. So be careful if you're going to open that up. This is the main spot. The most likely the reason why people would open this would be to upgrade the storage or RAM. So they've made that very easy to access. But I'd like to have seen the Wi-Fi module easily accessible as well. And it looks like because of the speaker, there's no room to add a second M.2 slot. So understand why that's not there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. On the top of the unit here, with our Go Faster stickers, we've got a power button that doubles as a fingerprint reader. So you can set that up in your control panel. It's pretty easy to do. I don't use them myself, but it's there if you want to use it. And obviously using it is optional. Okay, now how do I put this back together? It's not going to line up. This way?
Remember the speaker.
Does it go this way? Oh, that's an easy way to tell, right? Just line up the speaker. Just like so. So that's very easy to take I was going to say to take apart, but to open it up for any potential upgrades. Super easy.
Yeah, that's kind of clever.
I just enjoy the fact you don't have to remove any rubber feet to get to the screws. That mounting point there is for a VESA bracket. It looks like it's going right into the speaker, doesn't it? Problem with a mini PC, is you don't have a lot of room. So you got to get kind of creative with how you're going to place items or what items you can place based on space confinement. Now, back over to the box. Let's see what else we got in the box. This right here. This has our power brick, which uses the Mickey Mouse style power cable. And our voltages are listed, if it will focus. 19 volts, 3.42 amps, 65 watt. And there's the power cable. There's our VESA bracket. If we want to use that to mount this behind a monitor or, hang it off a wall or off the side of a desk, for example. And then the screws here, also the small ones, are for mounting a 2.5-inch SATA drive that I just showed you the carriage for. And then we have an HDMI cable. Looks like about a 4-footer from the looks of things. And I'm not going to use these cables because I already have the Mickey Mouse power cable set up on the desk. So I'll just put this back in the box for now. so we don't get it confused with other stuff. And I'll hook up power and our cable, hook that up. And then I need a keyboard and a mouse. Just plug that in up front. And then I need to step around by camera girl there, and on the floor I will have, somewhere down here, an HDMI cable that'll go to our capture card. We're gonna plug that in right there. I think I've already set this up, so I should be able to plug it into the network. Cable is right here, and I think we are golden. I think we're ready to rock and roll just with that. All right, so I guess we can give you a break, camera girl. Hold on, don't move yet. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There she goes. Watch your step.
Got it.
You're clear. Thank you. All right, so I will take camera one and put it up here in a corner like up there, I suppose. And we'll turn on the HDMI input right there, and I'll hit the power button. Power button glows blue. There does not appear to be any other LED or hard drive activity or anything like that, which is getting more and more common. I'm always pleased when I see that extra LED for hard drive activity, but I suppose they're on their way out. For some reason, manufacturers just don't want to add those anymore. Now, that booted up awfully quickly. I've clearly been in here before. All right. That's right. I did an Amazon Live video on this. Sensing deja vu here. Okay, let me go full screen over here on my side of things so I can see what you guys can see. Windows security. All right, don't care about that. Let's go to this PC. There's our C drive. Right click, properties. Yep, that's our 500 gig C drive. I obviously have not run Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 Optimizer on this. We can take a look at what our performance is. It looks like we're going to be somewhere in the budget range as far as performance goes. So I wouldn't expect to be blown away here, but we'll go ahead and run this test while we're in here. And let's see while we're waiting what you guys are saying here in the chat room. I guess I need to move this over to It would be cool to see the speed of the Thunderbolt port. I think, well, I don't know that I have anything that's Thunderbolt 4. That's the problem. I think I have some Thunderbolt 3 devices, but not Thunderbolt 4. So I don't know that I have a way to really demonstrate that, unfortunately. It's not a very common interface because there's royalties that have to get paid. So it's more expensive to implement Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is Intel's baby, and if you want to use it in your computer, in other words, if you want to manufacture a computer or a add-in card with Thunderbolt, you have to pay for the licensing rights from Intel, which of course makes it more expensive. And with everybody being so fixated on price, it's not a common add-on. Mark Gaines joins us. Welcome in, Mark, as does Fast Alpha. LRCX joins us. And Dom Long. Douglas Burchell contributes $2 via Super Chat and says, my just-in-time fee. Right on. Glad to have you here, Douglas. Tom K with a $2 Super Chat says, it's only 107 degrees Fahrenheit here in Tucson. Oh, don't worry. It's still getting hotter for the next 3 hours. 3D Everything just contributed $20 via Super Chat. Thank you, 3D Everything. 3D Everything says, because it is my birthday, again, I did the same thing last year. Now I'm 68 years old. Well, everybody say happy birthday to 3D Everything. And thank you so much for giving me a present, giving the channel a present. Right on. Happy birthday. This machine is whisper quiet. I don't even hear a fan on it right now. Look at all the happy birthdays coming in for you, 3D Everything. George Frugia says hello. All right, so clearly, if we wanted higher performance, we could replace the NVMe drive with a more expensive model if that was something important to us. Given it's an 11th gen, would it support Gen 4? I'm not sure. John Williams says we share the same birthday, but I'm 1 year younger. Well, happy birthday to John Williams as well. Head on, guy. Glad we get to celebrate your birthdays together. Now, almost done here, and we can move on. Someone was asking about how the fingerprint sensor works. If you've ever owned a laptop, it's a pretty straightforward process of just registering your fingerprints. You can store up to 10 different fingerprints on it. So if you're sharing the computer with other people and you want them to have their own account, or you want to register at least 3 fingers in case you get a cut on your fingertip, that's obviously going to impact your fingerprints until it heals. Unless it leaves a scar, it permanently alters your fingerprint. So you always want to have multiple fingers registered just in case you need to give it the finger. All right, so there's our final benchmark results. And again, going any higher than this, really for most people, they're not going to notice any difference whatsoever. It's mostly looking at benchmark numbers and being happy with what you're seeing. Not so much really feeling the computer being any faster. But it depends on the user, and it depends on the applications they use, and it depends on basically how the computer's being used. Most people won't see a difference or a benefit upgrading to a higher performance NVMe drive, but some people don't care about that. Some people just want to chase those numbers. If that's how they want to spend their money and chase the numbers, well, the machine offers that affordability. It affords you the opportunity, is what I want to say, of spending more money needlessly if that's what you want to do. Of course, you might be better suited just upgrading to a larger storage drive. You know, with the Team Group NVMe drives now, they're 4 terabytes for $185 or something. And there's even cheaper ones than that. I've seen 11 NVMe drives going for under 150 for 4 terabytes. So that, for me, would be a more reasonable reason to upgrade the solid state drive, not necessarily for performance. After all, this isn't a rocket ship. It's higher performance than what we typically see from AceMagician, but it's absolutely not a leader in this regard. I mean, after all, that's an 11th gen CPU. We're already at 13th gen CPUs and 14th gen coming out in the fall. That's what's predicted. So we're looking at a 2-year-old processor. So bear that in mind. It doesn't make it bad. It just makes it more affordable. If you want to go a generation or 2 behind, you can save quite a bit of money when there's only about a 10% performance difference in the processors from one generation to the next of a similar model. So anyway, Planet Cryos with a $5 super chat says, hello all, as always, here's the late fee required to start watching 25 minutes into the stream. Thank you, Planet Cryos. Andy wants to know what gen is that drive. Well, this drive clearly is Gen 3. Now, what gen is the slot? I'm not exactly sure. It's possible that it's Gen 4. They don't really make that clear. We'd have to put a different NVMe drive in there. And I want to let you be aware that you notice when I opened it up, it had a heatsink on this drive. You're going to go with a faster, let's face it, the only reason you're asking about what generation is it is for speed. Then you're going to generate more heat, and you may end up having an issue with regards to thermal throttling in a case this small, being cramped in so tightly where it is. I'm going to strongly advise you to stay away from that. But if you want to go with bigger capacity, of course, that's no problem. But again, chasing those numbers, I would strongly advise against that on this specific model, because ultimately what you'll probably end up doing is you'll get those numbers momentarily. The drive heats up, it starts to thermal throttle, and it will run slower than a Gen 3 drive until it cools down. So for those reasons, I would advise against it. You've got to keep in mind, this is still a budget PC. If you're going to expect Rolls-Royce features and performance on a Chevy Sprint, there's a big price difference between those two cars. And comparing them, well, it just doesn't seem like a very realistic thing to do unless you just like to be disappointed all the time and let down. This is nothing money can't fix. If you're somebody that really finds it important to have Gen 4 and you want it to be able to run that properly, there are models of a mini PC from other manufacturers that can accommodate that just fine for an extra $100 to $400, depending on just how extra you want to go. When AceMagician makes these, the idea here is they're selling you a box that you can immediately start to use. You don't have to do any modification to them. AceMagician does not offer these in a bare bones configuration. If you're that person, you should look to minis for them. They're mini PCs, many of which are offered in a bare bones configuration, so you can select what RAM and what solid state drive you'd like to use. For everybody else, the vast majority of computer owners, they're never going to upgrade this, and nor would they need to. So, set your expectations accordingly. Alan Lindas with a $7.77 super chat says, "Hey, I guess it's my turn to send in my late fee. Yeah, I'm late again. Happy Saturday, y'all." Luke Greeny has got the CK10 AceMagician. He says he's loving it. Yeah. All right. So let me close this out and let's go to control. Well, you could probably just type in fingerprint. What's it called? Biometrics. I'm trying to think what the search is to get over to that. We'll just go to settings and look at it. Do it the hard way, I suppose. And under, let's see, probably under user accounts. Where's user account? Not personalization, isn't it? I think it's personalization. See in security. Go under accounts. Andrew Murray says accounts on the left side of the screen. There we go. Your info. Sign-in options. Okay, sign-in options. Fingerprint recognition. So we need to put a password on the account, obviously, which I don't do. And then once we do that, we can go into the fingerprint recognition part of our control panel and register our fingerprints no differently than you do on your smartphone. It's really just that simple. And then, of course, when you get to your lock screen or you're booting up for the first time, instead of entering a password, you could just touch the fingerprint reader and that can log you in just like a smartphone. It's really no different. Cordius Technology with a $2 super chat says, "This is my fine for being tardy." Good day. Welcome in, Cordius Technology. Luigi Corleone says, I'm waiting for my Minis Forum UM790 order for weeks. Did anybody receive theirs? I live in Germany and pre-ordered it when it came out. It looks like this is the first person I've heard mention this, so I'm not aware of there being an issue with the UM790s going out, but have you reached out to the folks at Minis Forum to ask for a status update on your order? I mean, I would rather hear it straight from them than from some rando in the chat room. LRCX says, if you tell me the thickness of the front of your desk, I'll make you a cable holder for all the cables on the floor. So again, I think sometimes these conversations that you guys want to talk to me, if you want a one-on-one conversation with me and it's business related, let's just please do that in email so we can keep the focus on track, and then we can talk about these matters privately. I appreciate the offer, and we need to follow that up in email, not in an open chat during a live video, if you please. Greg Horsman says, my UM790 has not been delivered either. I emailed them today, but they're not in on the weekend. Okay, so how long have you guys been waiting for the UM790? Has it been 2 weeks? I can ask Phil over at Minis Forum, see if he has any information that he can share with me regarding when they expect to ship. Says apparently they haven't shipped yet. Okay. Let's go over to, oh, I can run my utilities. Let's go ahead and plug my utilities flash drive in. We'll copy over. See, I'm going to install VLC like I always do. Uncle Gary's Windows 10 optimizer. There it is. Eject utilities flash drive. And let's see. Let's go ahead and run the optimizer first, I think. We'll get that out of the way. Paul says it's 101 degrees Fahrenheit in climbing in Fresno, California. Dustin Fuller joins us and says hello. Jeff H says he bought or ordered his UM790 on the 1st of July. Luigi says 4 or 5 weeks ago. Greg Horsman said, I've been waiting since June 24th for a UM790, but I wasn't expecting it to come quickly. I wonder what they're saying when you go to the website to order a UM790. Does it indicate that, you know, when it's planning to ship, or does it not even mention that as though it's in stock? I'd be kind of curious. Again, I can follow that up with Phil, my contact over at Minis Forum. But interesting to know. I had no idea that that was, so many of you were waiting on one. Mark Gain said, I'm frustrated. Canon has stopped supporting my printer. It's only 2 years old. Well, think about that the next time you order or buy a printer. Think about who you want to profit from your purchase, right? So if you don't like that Canon has sunsetted that printer, try a different manufacturer. The best way you can send a message to the company is to vote with your dollars. Now, I'm not exactly sure what support on a printer means. Most of the time, there isn't much in the way of support these days, but sure, finding ink is never going to be a problem. And drivers are still going to work for Windows 10 and 11 regardless. So I'm not quite sure in what regard you would need support. I guess what I'm saying is, it doesn't really sound like it's that big of a deal to me, but I don't understand perhaps what the issue is. I mean, I'm assuming you're having an issue that you can't get resolved. If so, this is the best place to come for support anyway. Come and join in our chat room and ask the question in the chat. And many of our knowledgeable community members here will be happy to help you out and probably do a better job at it than Canon would do anyway. Let me get VLC installed on here. Get that out of the way. And as soon as that's done, we'll go in the control panel, take a look at the list of installed applications, and I'll remove some I don't want. Guessing I haven't done that yet. So settings, and then we'll go under apps, installed apps. And let's see, it's got AV1 video extension in here. That's nice to see. During video, AV1's the way to go. We're going to get rid of the Microsoft Media Player. I prefer to use VLC. And we'll get rid of Microsoft News. Don't need that. Microsoft OneDrive, I don't use that. It always starts with the computer and it's taking up resources. And it's something easily re-downloadable if an end user wanted to change that and put it back on. It's the big deal. Microsoft Teams, same thing. I don't use it. It loads every time Windows loads, so I want it out of there. If I decide to use Teams, I will download it when I need it. Minecraft Education Edition. Sure, that's a thing. We'll remove that along with the mixed reality portal and mobile plans. And we'll also get rid of movies and TV. Now you'll see there's Office installed on here, but it is basically there to sell you Office. It is not a licensed working copy of Office. It's a taste. Well, I want that taking up space on my drive, so we'll take that out of there as well. After all, it's only 500 gig storage, so we want to free up as much room as possible. And what else? There's our Thunderbolt Control Center. Windows Security, Xbox, I'll take that out of there. This Xbox game bar can't be removed, so take out Xbox Live. Now that's going to free up quite a bit of hard drive space, as well as free up some system resources from everything that's startup. And the other thing I like to do with Windows 11 particularly is I right-click on the taskbar and go to taskbar settings, and then I will choose other system tray icons. So I want Bluetooth icon and safely eject media. Don't need VLC or Microsoft Teams. Okay, that looks good to me. And let's get rid of this. We could take a look at CPU Z and look at the specifications of the hardware installed on this mini PC. I'm sure it's going to match everything the manufacturer says it has, but we'll take a look at it just the same. Oh, it looks like I've got an update to my CPU Z. All right, there's information about our CPU. It's the i7. And information on our main board here, which probably isn't going to tell us much of anything useful. Information about the installed memory. And the SPD is the serial present device on the memory that can tell us all the details of the CAS latency and RAS to CAS and pre-charge and all that other stuff is all listed in here. And you'll see that's for slot 1, and that's the information for memory in slot 2. Our onboard graphics that are integrated into the GPU are the Intel Iris Xe graphics. And if we close this and we'll right-click on this PC and go to Properties, that'll take us into the System Properties, where we can see the 16 gigs of RAM with 15.8 gig usable. That's because the 0.2 that's missing is actually being used by our onboard video card. It's Windows 11 Pro 22H2 that the machine comes installed with. And we'll take a look at the device manager. Right-click on the Start button, go to Device Manager. And for things like the network adapter, who makes that? That's an Intel 1 gigabit i219V. Our Wi-Fi is made by Realtek. And of course, that's the Bluetooth is part of the Wi-Fi adapter. And that's Wi-Fi 6. You should see what, 4 or 8 processors, right? 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 4 cores and 8 threads, which looks to be, the threads make it look like you have an extra core. So you've got what appears to be 8 cores when it's really 4 cores with 8 threads. So multitasking and things like that can happen much more smoothly. when it comes to, oh, there's biometric devices. That's going to be our fingerprint reader up here. And yeah, everything looks happy in here. Sort all these icons now because they're all over the place. Now that's much better. Recycle bin. And so based on us removing these things, our total amount of free space on the drive. Oh, we're just using this little blue part. So out of 512 gigs of potential available space, we're using just under 30 gigs, or 27.4 gigs to be more precise, of just having Windows with all the Windows updates installed and all of our drivers. So plenty of room on here to continue to expand it. Now, with regards to testing the performance of Thunderbolt 4, as I mentioned, I have a Thunderbolt device, but I think it's Thunderbolt 3. Where did I put it? It should be in this other room here. Put it. Ah, here it is. Yeah, this is Thunderbolt 3. This is made by the folks at Pluggable, and I reviewed this a couple of years ago. I don't use this at all because, quite frankly, I don't have enough computers with Thunderbolt on them on a regular basis. So what's the point? It's basically a very large heatsink over a solid-state drive. So it's pretty heavy. It's not so easy to carry it around with me where I go. And the cable is permanently attached onto the drive side of things. So let's see, it's also got the Thunderbolt 3 USB Type-C connector. If I plug that in to the Type-C connector up front here, we can see that the drive is empty, and we'll go over to Crystal Disk Mark and we can benchmark, just out of curiosity, what Thunderbolt 3 is going to get us, because Thunderbolt, like USB, is backwards compatible. So we're not really going to see the advantage of Thunderbolt 4 here. We'll select the D drive and we'll just do these two read and write sequential testing. So we'll run those tests and see those results here. Just a little. Yeah, so 2652 via external, what appears to be like any USB connection, is very, very fast. Can't say I've ever seen any USB type device run at speeds over 2000. And you've seen my struggle trying to get the SanDisk Extreme to work with USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2. Yeah, that's not confusing at all. And I'm happy to see 2000. With this device, 2600. So that's Thunderbolt 3. As you can imagine, Thunderbolt 4, if you have a Thunderbolt 4 device, remembering that you've got to pay licensing for anybody using Thunderbolt. So you'll pay for the licensing on the device, and you pay for licensing on the motherboard or the host adapter. So it's an expensive backup way of backing up, but it's also one of the fastest. Not quite sure why we're so slow on those writes. That doesn't seem correct. Let me go over to profile. Change this just to write mode. Do that again. I wonder if it got hot. It's pretty weird. It doesn't feel hot at all. It feels colder than room temperature, quite frankly. I wasn't expecting that. Wow. Well, something doesn't seem right. If the data flows in at 2.5 megabytes per second in a read, it should equally be able to write to it at that fast. What does the box say in this regard? The box says sequential transfer speeds of 2400 plus megabytes per second on the reads and 1800 plus megabytes per second on the writes. Huh. Something doesn't seem right there. All right, let's close this. No, I don't have to close it. I'll just eject it. Do I have a different USB Type-C port in the back? Well, I am a little puzzled what this port back here is for, because obviously our Thunderbolt port is this port I just used up front. This rectangular port in the back above the Kensington lock does not appear to have any connector in it. I would almost guess, what is that for? I would almost guess it was like for a carrying strap. That's what it reminds me of, like something that a camera might have on it. And there's no icon around it to identify what it is. I don't know if they mention in the book what that plug is, but it seems to be ignored. We don't talk about that. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it. So I think I have something to try here. I think it's just like for a carrying handle to attach. I'm wondering if that was used for, because I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks like a mini DisplayPort plug would fit in there, except that there's no plug in there. It's just plastic inside of there. So no idea. I have no idea. But it's, I have identified it incorrectly when I said that was the Thunderbolt 4. That is not. There's nothing metal in there. It's a plastic hole. So they don't seem to mention it. Scott says hello. Hey, welcome in, Scott. Randy Robleski says hello. Welcome in, Randy. Ben Laird, joining us from Scotland, says hello. Welcome in. This machine has been whisper quiet the entire time we've had it on, except for the glowing bluish green halo light around the power button. I would not even know it was on. So we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it's 4 USB ports with 1 Thunderbolt 4 port that also is compatible with USB Type-C. We've got HDMI out, DisplayPort out, and then of course we've got a gigabit Ethernet power adapter. So overall, not much in the way of fluff here. This is the essentials. You're not going to see RGB. You're not seeing excessive cooling techniques. One of the problems when you run into putting in a higher performance CPU, not only does it cost more, but then you may also have more fan noise. The cooling's got to be a bit more aggressive. The higher the performance, the more heat it generates. Also, the more power it's going to consume. So this thing is pretty low on power. I think it's a total of 65 watt maximum pull from the unit itself. And fairly expandable. I was talking with one of my clients the other day about setting them up with a mini PC. And we've been discussing it, and I said, oh, the heck with it. Let's just start somewhere. So I sent them an 11th gen system from Intel NUC, in a similar form factor, but it didn't have much in the way of input-output ports. So I knew this was going to be a potential problem, but I didn't know, are we going to be one short, you know. Anyway, it turns out customer needs a total of 5 USB ports, and they run 3 monitors, so they need 3 video outputs. Now that Intel NUC 11 does support 3 monitors. You'll get one through HDMI. There's a mini display port, so you can convert that to HDMI. And then it's got the USB Type-C, which again, you can convert out to DisplayPort or HDMI. So he can get the 3 monitors that way. With regards to the USB, he's got a total of, I believe, 4 Type A USB 3s on that device, which leaves him just 1 short. Now, one way that can be avoided or dealt with is to simply buy a monitor that has a USB hub built into it, or just simply buy a USB hub. But if the idea behind going to the mini PCs is to reduce the desk clutter, well, it looks messy. And so ideally, we would send him a mini PC for his office that's going to support 3 monitors, all HDMI, and have a total of 6 USB ports. So he'll have the 5 he needs plus an extra one. I think the GTR 6 fits that bill pretty good. I'm trying to remember. I have to go back through some of the mini PCs I've got in the storage there and see if any of those fit that bill. It's pretty specific for the business that he needs that. And he's pretty convinced he needs desktop tower machines. And I'm saying, I don't think you do. Humor me. Let's just play with a mini PC and tell me what you think of its performance. So I sent him one that was upgraded with a Samsung 980 1 terabyte drive, because we don't want the employees saving their data on the mini PC. We want the data being saved onto the network attached storage. And 64 gigs of RAM just to max it out. And I said, you know, don't get too hung up about the lack of ports right now. Try the performance, listen to it. Tell me if you think it's noisy. Tell me if you think it performs well. We can deal with the ports later. But in the meantime, I said, you could hook all 3 monitors up. You just need to get that USB Type-C to HDMI cable. And I sent him a link to Amazon. And I included a mini DisplayPort to HDMI cable in the box because I knew he was going to have at least 2 monitors. I wasn't aware he's using 3 now. So, and that's for every computer he says in the office. And I think there's around 15 to 18 PCs there, varying generations. So anyway, I'll be very interested to hear his feedback. He's never touched a mini PC before. And I'm also starting to wonder if maybe those little HP mini PCs might be better equipped for him for those needs. After all, those are designed for office use, but they are expensive. George Schleicha with a $10 super chat. Thank you, George. Evans04 says, hello, Carrie, from Ireland. Cheers, Evans. Charles Griffin said he's interested to hear what the speaker sounds like. That may be difficult for me to convey. It's a very small speaker, so you're not going to have a lot of depth or bass. It's clearly not stereo. It's just one speaker. So I think it's just going to be good for the little bleeps and blips. Or I guess if you were watching a video where somebody's talking, like this video here, you would not need to hook up speakers. Start without data, continue without data, check this box. Confirm and start browsing. We'll go over to YouTube. Go to my channel. Here's the video. We're gonna be meta here. Oh, look, you get to see about toenail fungus. I'm not giving them free advertising inside of my video, inside of my video, inside of my video. Yeah, that didn't get confusing at all. Oh man, skip this. That's disgusting. And let's see. Yeah, there's your video feedback. Picture in a picture in a picture in a picture. Audio. Is it creepy? I was just trying to see if we can get some audio out of this. Where is my audio output going? Might be going out to the monitor. It's Wi-Fi. Pro capture, yeah, it's going out through the through to the capture device. We'd have to choose the speakers. Capture. So then I guess I would have to go into OBS and momentarily turn the sound suppression off. Okay, so with noise suppression turned off, you should be able to hear this. So with noise suppression turned off, you should be able to hear this. And I don't know if I have the volume all the way up on that or not. Let's see. I don't know if I have the volume all the way up on that. So the volume on the YouTube video is up, and then on the mini PC itself, where's our volume at? Okay, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Okay, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a very adequate speaker for sure. Okay, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a very adequate speaker for sure. Okay, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a very adequate speaker. Sure. Okay, test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Oh, very adequate speaker. It's in a loop. I got boot loops. 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 That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That should quiet it up. Aren't you? That should quiet it up. Oh, still playing. Aren't you? That should quiet it up. Oh, still playing. Aren't you? That should quiet it up. Oh. Okay, solve that problem. See, careful what you ask for here, because I might just honor your request. Enjoy your boot loops. You guys have any other questions about this little mini PC that I can answer for you? I may not know the answer, but I'll try. Starshine said, calling my psychiatrist. There you go. It's the shroom stream, says Starshine. Fred May says, hello, everyone. No longer from Louisville. We moved to Canton, Michigan. I was considering moving to Canton, Michigan. That's where Jeff Hallish lives. Jeff was hosting Podnuts podcast for a while and was involved in the TechCon conference. Seems like a nice little city. I don't think Canton existed in the 1970s when I lived in Detroit, but everything there's very modern. You know, in Detroit, a lot of the buildings are, 100 plus years old. So to get into a city that everything looks modern in Michigan, well, I don't see that too often. And In Arizona, I'm a little spoiled, at least in Phoenix, where everything's very modern. Nothing's really been here more than 50 years, 70, 60 years maybe. Most of the buildings are all brand new. So there's a certain modern look and feel to being in Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs, whereas Michigan is a much older state and was settled much earlier, about 100 years before Arizona, I think. Was it 100 years? 50 years? I don't remember. But Arizona was made a state in 1912 and Michigan was made a state early 1800s. Anyway, for that reason, you go to back east, like Philadelphia, Boston, a lot of old construction. Phoenix, mostly new construction. And what I found appealing about Canton was how modern everything was in Michigan. I guess that's what I was trying to say this whole time. Michael Dane contributes $20 via Super Chat. It says, have a great day, Carrie, and all chat. Thank you, Michael. Michael Dane, he's the man. You'll have to let me know what you think of Canton when you've been there a while, Fred. Randy says Wisconsin became a state in 1848. Imagine Michigan probably became a state before that, right? As they worked their way west. I could Google it. I think I would know this. When did Michigan become a state?
January 26, 1837. According to State of Michigan, Michigan became a state on January 26, 1837, and pioneers were bursting with ideas for expansion, including a plan to unite Detroit with Chicago by canals and railroads.
There you go. There you have it. No emails. I'm not missing anything there. Just thought I'd check while I'm in here. So that catches us all up, I think. So the TK11 from AceMagician is sort of meeting in the middle with performance and budget. So a lot of times on these budget machines that we're seeing from AceMagician and Camrui, we're dealing with Celeron processors, or the N processor, N95, N100. We might see some bargain Ryzen processors. So here, we're sort of in the middle where we're still under $500. I would say 500 and above would be a higher end mini PC. Budget is usually around $200 and less, and between 200 and 500, you're in your mid range. I would say this is putting you over mid range, just entering into the higher end, but saving you $50 before entering the price level, the entry price level of $500 on higher end mini PCs as of July 2023, in my opinion. Bruce Lucas says, I live in one of the original states, Georgia, which has been around since the 1700s. Yeah, so I'm sure you have a lot of older construction there as well. Frank Jimmy wants to know if it's got any relation to TK421. I hope not, because TK421, completely compromised the security of the Millennium Falcon while it was docked in the Death Star. Kinetic Plastic says, hello, Carrie and chat. Been watching videos for several months, but finally catching a live stream. Well, we're glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Have I missed any questions? Does anybody have any questions about this or other mini PCs? This will be the time to ask. The link for this unit is in the video description that takes you to Amazon. If you make a purchase from Amazon after you've clicked my link that takes you to Amazon, even if you don't buy that product the link takes you to, but while you're there in that browser session, you buy something else or other things from Amazon, I make a small commission from that. It's anonymous. I don't know who you are, nor will I ever know. I don't know where you are. All I know is a purchase was made in X amount of dollars that was sourced from my link. And then therefore, I know how much commission to expect. That's why Amazon reports what was sold, giving me credit for initiating that sale, even if I wasn't purposely initiating the sale of whatever you bought, but rather what the link took you to, that product page. So it's a great anonymous way to support the channel, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's the same everything, same shipping options, same pricing. And it helps keep us independent here so that we don't have to deal with sponsors telling us what we can or cannot say or telling us what products we have to review. I only review products I want to. Every once in a while, we'll get a sponsor that has a product I want to review. And in those cases, I gladly will take their sponsorship, but under the condition that they still can't tell me what I can or cannot say, nor would I submit the video to them for approval, which is almost always a requirement on sponsorship deals. So the sponsors we have are basically pay-as-you-play kind of sponsorships. So the folks over at VIP CDK Deals offer you guys a 30% discount on top of their already low prices on software, particularly Windows 10, Windows 11, and Microsoft Office. And using the coupon code of CARRY, you get 30% off the prices you see on the screen that everybody else pays. Then, of course, we've got a discount to RoboForm. That's 30% off new accounts. If you've never purchased RoboForm, you can save 30% using my link. There's no coupon code. The link is the coupon code. And then, of course, we've got now discounts to Acronis and to Malwarebytes. I think they're both 15% off. And I always keep a link to Instant House Call in there. They're kind of a sponsor, but for the most part, software that I use in my real job, which is, being an IT technician. And in fact, I was using it last night at 1:30 in the morning, trying to get some computers updated at my client's office. I have learned the hard way that my client's, this particular client is shutting the AC or turning the AC up really high, which makes sense after business hours. So I was in there one evening doing work, and I wasn't in there 15 minutes, and I was sweating like crazy, and I don't want to adjust the thermostat. I don't even know where it is to adjust it. But the room we keep the server in is kept air conditioned. So I would go take a break in that room for a few minutes. I've been avoiding going over there. It's a 30-mile drive each way. And any work I can do remotely, obviously, I want to do that. And these computers have multiple monitors, and I'm remoting in from a laptop that has one screen, and the remote software lets you pick which screen you want to look at and switch among them. And yeah, thank goodness it saved me a trip over there. A bunch of machines were missing the last Windows updates, and a bunch of the machines had the updates installed and were waiting for a restart, and these folks hadn't restarted their computers in like 2 weeks. So I was able to log on and initiate that restart, and then decided I would change the configuration where Windows Update will restart automatically during off-peak hours. I don't want it to restart during active hours. So that way we shouldn't have to repeat this. They said the computer is starting to run sluggish. Obviously they hadn't tried restarting it yet. And that saved me a trip, drive all the way out there just to do what I could do remotely. And that's Instant House Call. It's very affordable for remote software. It's really designed for technical assistance. It's not, let's face it, if you just wanted remote access for your own personal use, this would not be the best solution for you. But if you're a technician and you need to log into computers, both in an attended mode or unattended mode, well, that's what I use. I dropped TeamViewer a long time ago and haven't looked back. Don't miss them one bit. So if you're curious about that, all the software all has free trials, including Instant House Call. Instant House Call is a small company. Corey Fruitman owns that company. And if you email support and say, can I get a couple extra days of the trial? I need a little bit more time to decide. Corey will say, yeah, no problem. You know, he's not going to give you a free account indefinitely, but if you ask for an extension on the trial period, if you need it, he'll be glad to do that for you. So I like working with companies like this, like the folks at RoboForm, like the folks at Acronis, like the folks at Instant House Call, and the folks at VIP CDK Deals. All of these companies that I work with guarantee their product and are 100% legit, legal, and have great customer service. These companies would, you know, if you were upset and you didn't like the product, they would rather give you back your $20 or $30, whatever it is, than have you pissed off and throwing a fit. It's just common sense. Not all companies have common sense. That's why you don't see a lot of offers here from other manufacturers or other product on this channel, because I'm very particular over what I will associate myself with. David Dix at Rock City PC says Corey Fruitman is awesome. I agree. We've had him on the show a number of times, and it's always a pleasure to hang around. Bruce Lucas wants to know my thoughts on Real VNC. So Real VNC is a remote software that you would have to address with port forwarding in your router, and you'd have to have a static IP address or set up a dynamic DNS on the computer you're remoting into. So it's a very old school sort of manually intensive setup and of the configuration and of the ongoing maintenance. So the minute your public IP address changes, or if your internal IP address changes, it's just not going to work. So for that reason, you know, back in the 1990s, late 1990s, early 2000s, it's probably the peak of Real VNC, Tight VNC, all those other VNCs. Now, using those to me, I don't know, it just seems like you're staying back in time. Having anything that's web-based is much, much easier to configure. It's easier to maintain, and it generally has a lot more features than Real VNC has. So for me personally, if we went back in time 20 plus years, I'd recommend it. Today, the landscape for remote software has changed dramatically. Real VNC has not. It's still the same basic utility that it was. You might as well just use Windows built-in remote access or Chrome's remote access if your needs are so simple. Personally, I like web-based remote access. So that's just my point, my preference. I don't want to have to set up a bunch of port forwarding and hard-coded static IP addresses for 12 computers in one office. It's just too difficult to maintain, and I wouldn't use it myself. But back in the day, there wasn't much choice, and it was great back then. But by comparison today, it's a bit archaic. Fred says we're living in the basement of our daughter's home, in Canton, Michigan. It's a below ground basement without a walkout. So typically the walkout style is on the western side of Michigan overall. Gary, is your chipset notifier supposed to be run with antivirus turned off? No, I would never, ever recommend you turn off antivirus. Under no circumstances. If you have any specific questions regarding that, you should reach out to the folks over at D7X Tech, and they would be the ones to ask your technical questions to as they've developed it. And if you're having a particular issue, they can tell you if it's something you've misconfigured or something that they need to address in an update. But you can email service@d7xtech.com, and they're usually pretty quick to respond. Shane wants to know any ideas why an automated restart would cause a hang-up but a manual restart has no hiccup, no hangups. I'd have to see it. There's 1,000 different ways a computer can crash or not behave properly. And so depending on how you've configured it and what you've got running in the background, and there's just so many variables involved in it. I couldn't tell you unless I had it in front of me and you could replicate the problem so I can see it. With those two things, having it in front of me and being able to replicate the problem, I would then be able to suss out what the cause was. But just based on the question you've asked, it's far too vague, and the possibilities are practically endless to the imagination. Bull142 said, is tech easier now than it was 25 years ago? Oh, yes, very much so. Paul says, my Norton is blocking functions. Well, that's what Norton does. I'm surprised you would even use Norton. In general, Norton and McAfee are very much not respected by the community, the IT community, or even technical hobbyists. In fact, if you ask this room, just throw it out there, how many of you out there use Norton, or what do you think of Norton antivirus? Let's see what the room says. Tell us your thoughts on Norton antivirus. Tell us why. And then I'll let the chat room speak for itself. I have no control over what the chat room's going to say. We didn't prepare, to say, hey, when this person asked this question, this is just the real response from the community. I'm not sure why anybody would put antivirus on a computer anymore with Windows 10 or 11, because you already got it covered for free with the built-in antivirus that Windows includes. And it's a very well-respected and highly rated antivirus. I do combine it with Malwarebytes, a paid version, just to protect me from malware, but even that hasn't been very much an issue with my clients in the last couple of years. So I've been taking Malwarebytes off of machines when it expires now instead of renewing it, because at least for my clients, they're not the curious type that download everything they see all the time. Far from it. And we've trained them to be aware of what to click on, what not to click on. And as these licenses expire, I'm just going ahead and removing the product. So as long as we have that Windows antivirus, we're fine. What do you got going on over there?
Cooking.
You're cooking?
Yeah.
What are you cooking?
Toast casserole.
A French toast casserole?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I'm not there, you start without me.
Low carb, sugar free, and vegan.
Low carb, sugar free, and vegan.
Right. You have to let the bread go stale.
Oh, stale bread. Count me in on that stale bread. Not.
It's here for you.
All right, we're live now, what, an hour and 20 minutes? So if you have any other questions, this will be the time to ask. I'm going to grab a colder Gatorade. And yeah, anything about the mini PC you want to know, I'll try my best to provide an answer. Or if you have other technical questions, myself and the chat room would be glad to offer our opinions. Always be sure and watch the chat room for answers to your questions.
Just to address the question about cam girl cooking, that is a possibility that may be coming soon.
Yeah, cooking channel. John Paul Bacon says, please ask Camera Girl if you've tried using stevia. Stevia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like stevia by itself. It has a weird aftertaste, but if I combine it with like allulose, it's
There you go. Or can you upgrade the memory on the mini PC? As I mentioned earlier, it's SO-DIMM RAM. So any device that has dual channel SO-DIMM RAM can only hold the biggest RAM module made. That's 32 gigs. And since it can hold two of them, your total will be 64 gigs. And that'll be true of any DDR4 SO-DIMM. It's 32 gigs maximum per socket. Now, when you're dealing with the Celeron or N processors from Intel, the processors themselves are limited. I'll use the word limited by how much RAM. Generally, it's only 16 gigs allowable on those budget processors. So even though you could put a 32 gig module in, the most that processor officially will see is 16. It has nothing to do with the manufacturer, the motherboard, or the operating system. All right. Well, it seems pretty quiet in the chat room. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I want to thank the folks over at AceMagician for sending the PC for review, and hopefully we'll see some more from them in months ahead, as new models are always seemingly always being released by AceMagician all the time. So I'm looking forward to seeing what awaits us in the wings. Kinetic Plastic says, I have a Z590 motherboard with an i5 10500. I want to upgrade, but I'm torn between a 10900 or an 11900. Which do you think is better for the money? I would say just stick with the 10500. I don't know why you'd want to change it. Honestly, the difference you're going to see in performance isn't going to be much. What's the main purpose of what's the main thing you do on the computer that you think upgrading your CPU would be a benefit? You've got to remember, those chips run very hot, the ones you're talking about, and likely the cooler you're using now will not be enough to cool those. You might end up having to spend a lot more to find a cooling solution, like a liquid cooler ideally, on those 900K processors. So I'd have to wonder if it's really worth it for, with the level of increase you're going to get, it's not much. So I'd have to wonder what it is you're using the computer for that you're trying to enhance. As I game a little, but mostly run virtual machines for a home lab, and I have a 240 millimeter all-in-one. Well, virtual machines can be very RAM hungry. I just don't know how much the processor is going to make in performance. Like, I think you'd be better off with a faster storage and 64 gigs of RAM. But honestly, for virtual machines, if we're talking about serious virtual machines here, I'd be using a Threadripper or a Xeon processor. I wouldn't even be considering the consumer-based processors you're talking about. But it depends on what kind of VMs you're running. And if they're that low anyway, I would think putting more RAM would be more beneficial to you than upgrading your CPU. However, at the end of the day, it'll be your choice. I can't really advise you as to, obviously, which one's better for the dollar is going to be the older one. The previous generation is more value. The newest generation is the least value when you're talking about megahertz to dollar. However, how we define value is such an individual thing that because I don't know you, I don't know anything about you, and I don't really understand specifically what virtual machines and how many and how you're configuring them, I really would be in no place to answer that other than I don't think it's going to make much difference. But because you already have a liquid cooler and you've already got that motherboard, it would just be a processor swap out. Kinetic Plastic says, until I have more money, I'll take your advice and upgrade from 32 to 64 gig of RAM for now. There you go. Brian Woodley wants to know, in my opinion, is there any benefit in running two 4 terabyte drives as opposed to one 8 terabyte other than space savings? Well, I will tell you this in general. If you have one device, you have one device that can fail. If you have two devices, you've now doubled your chances for a failure, to experience a failure. If you're wanting to put a configuration into RAID 1 or RAID 0, obviously you're going to need two drives to do that. Having an 8 terabyte drive all in one is really about the space savings, being able to free up those other M.2 drives, or you may only have one M.2 slot rather. And the idea is that you're combining as much storage space as possible that's also very fast into the smallest space as possible. It's usually much, much cheaper to buy two 4 terabyte drives than to buy one 8 terabyte drive. That will change in time, but right now the cheapest that I know of is the Oyan Digital 8 terabyte NVMe. That's $725. And yet you can get a Team Group 4 terabyte drive for $180, and two of those would be, well, almost half the price. You can almost get 16 gigs of 4 terabyte drives for the price of one 8 terabyte drive. So it's just the fact that it's all condensed into one as space savings. But how the drive is being used, there may be other advantages or disadvantages to consider based on the user's requirements, including budgetary needs, space, the number of ports available, et cetera, et cetera. There's no one size fits all answer here, as everything is customizable to the need or desire of the user and their individual budget. And there's 30 people in this room, you'll get 30 different answers for 30 different reasons. Andy wants to know, who's an ideal user for this PC? I think most users are ideal for this PC. Anybody but gamers. So yeah, unless you have a very specific need like Blender or some high-end application, this is going to do video editing and photo editing rather quickly, honestly. And space saving, it works great. It's overkill as a home theater PC, but certainly would work fine as a home theater PC. Overall, probably 85% of all computer owners would be ideal for this PC. Only those that are your tinkerers, your hobbyists, your makers, or those that have a specialty industry where they require certain amounts of certain kinds of hardware, be it graphics cards or CPUs during that line of work, they don't make up anywhere near close to the majority of computer owners. So overall, the appeal here is for the general population. Okay. I think that is going to be it for today, unless there's any final questions. 3D everything says, well, I suppose. Midwest goodbye. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks again to the contributions that came in during today's video. I'll give those folks, those generous folks, a shout out one more time here. If I can bring the page up. Here we go. Starting from the most recent, Michael Dane, George Schloika, K. Cordius Technology, Alan Lindos, Planet Cryos, 3D Everything, Douglas Burchell, Tom K, Paul O'Brien, again Paul O'Brien, and before the stream started, the first contribution, almost an hour before the stream started, from Sarge Tech. Thank you guys for continuing to support the channel. Thank you if you're a member. Thank you for supporting the channel that way so we can maintain our independence, review what we want, when we want, how we want, and don't have any corporate strings that we're connected to. Enjoy that freedom, and I hope you see the benefit in that as well. And thanks for hanging out and participating with us in the chat room today. Thank you, Camera Girl, for the camera work and the thumbnail. And as I mentioned before, to AceMagician for sending us the computer in exchange for the review. Other than that, there's no contract or obligation I hold to these companies when they send products in for review. But for full disclosure purposes, I do want to make clear when I'm using money earned through the channel or donated or contributed through the channel to buy items versus when companies send me items, just for full disclosure, so you guys know. And Bull142 just contributed $10 in Super Chat. Got in right under the wire. Thank you for that, Bull142. That'll wrap it up for me for today. I will see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.